Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial on React.js. This tutorial isn't a crash course. Basically, I'm not going to explain all the necessary stuffs about React.js in one single video. I'm going to take my time to break everything down into separate videos so that I'll explain them and you'll be able to understand them very well. So just grab a cup of coffee and let's learn together. So fast forward. What the heck is this trending? We don't know whether it's a programming language or it's a library or a framework or a tool. We don't know what it is, so we'll get to know. So what is React.js basically? So when you visit the official website of React.js, it tells you that React.js is a front-end JavaScript library which is used for building user interfaces. So when you visit react.js.org, that's the official website of React.js, it tells you that React.js is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. They didn't say for building APIs or building building databases or something of that sort. It's used for building user interfaces. So take note. Okay, let's take a sneak peek of the birth of React, or how React.js actually came into being. So React.js was created by a software engineer at Facebook called Jordan Walke. So this was what happened many years ago. When the Facebook app started scaling up, there were so many features that were being added and all that. The app started running very slow. The engineers at Facebook started having problem with the UI, the cascading and all that. So they needed and they had issues with maintaining their codes because they were having a whole lot of code, thousands and thousands of codes, and maintaining them was hectic to them. So they needed something that would be able to address that or solve that problem, because the app was actually running slow, which will bring down the company. So they needed something to be able to save themselves from that. So Jordan Walker, who is an employee, thought it wise to actually solve that problem by giving birth to React. So in the year 2011, React.js was officially brought to public for people to actually use. So he open sourced it, and the developers at Facebook was now able to maintain their codes and be able to write more effective codes, and the app was able to now run faster. And apparently React.js is maintained by Facebook. That's the company that gave birth to React. It's maintained by them. So I think it's worth it learning it if it's actually still maintained by them, because now it's open source, it's free. You don't need to pay a penny in order to use React.js in your application, be it an enterprise application, a side project, or whatever it is. You don't need to pay a penny. It's absolutely free. Okay, what do you need to know about React.js? So React.js is actually used to build client-side single page applications. So let's say you're building a full stack project. So basically what React focuses on is the interface. Okay, that's the front-end aspect. So you can React plays very good when you are building applications at the front end. That's the client side. Okay, what the user sees on the page. That is mostly what React.js is used to do. I know my backend developers will be like, oh, so can we also use React.js at the backend? Yes, you can use React.js if you're a backend developer. That's combining it with any backend programming language of your choice. But the most popular stack nowadays that is used in combination of React is MongoDB, Express, and Node.js. So that's the main stack: Mongo, React, Express, and Node. So using this stack, you'll be able to build a fully fledged application. That's a full stack application using the React.js library. And also, React is a library and not a framework. Many React.js developers actually see this topic or this argument about whether React is a library or a framework to be frivolous or trivial. But it's actually important to know, or get to understand, that React.js is a library and it's not a framework. As it stands now, React.js is not a framework, and I'll tell you why. So we have frameworks like Angular, that is owned and maintained by Google, and we have Vue also. These are framework and not libraries. Why? Because when a React.js is an unopinionated library, simply because React.js actually gives developers that flexibility to make a lot of decisions. It gives them that chance to be able to decide what to use and what not to use. React itself as a core package cannot be used to build a fully fledged application unless you pull in other utilities and third-party libraries and packages. So for instance, let's say you want to pull in routing. Okay, let's say you want to be able to navigate to other pages and all that. Maybe it's a single page application, but you have several pages that you want to be able to navigate to. You will the React core package doesn't provide that. You will have to pull in a package called the React router to be able to get that functionality working. Secondly, let's say you want to also integrate a form, with validations, user validations and all that into your application. The React core package doesn't provide that. You will have to either bring in Formic or the React hook form to that. But unlike using a framework like Angular or Vue, they are all embodied into the core package itself. So you don't need to go and download them and bring in those third-party packages. They are there for you. So this is the reason why React.js is a library and not a framework. So just take it from there. Now, why they need to even learn React.js if there's already frameworks like Angular or Vue? And I already said with Angular or Vue, you have your other smaller packages incorporated, which you don't have to spend time going to pulling in other third-party libraries again. So why do you need to learn what React.js? So I'll tell you why. So these are some of the reasons why you have to study React.js, or it's worth it learning React.js, using React.js in your application. So first, React.js actually uses the virtual DOM, which makes building application with it run faster. So one may ask, what is a virtual DOM? So actually we have the real DOM itself, which is in all browsers, and the virtual DOM. So the real DOM actually is an acronym that stands for Document Object Model, and in simple, it's just an object representation of an HTML document. So every time there's a change in the state of your application interface or UI, so the DOM gets updated to represent that particular change. So now the catch is actually frequently when you frequently manipulate the DOM, it actually affects the performance of your application, now in turn making your application run slow. So how does this DOM manipulation actually run slow? So the DOM is represented as a tree data structure. So because of that, the changes and updates to the DOM are fast, but after the change, the updated element and its children will have to be re-rendered to update the application UI. So this re-rendering process actually makes your application run very slow. So the more UI components that you will be having, the more stuff you'll be having on your UI, so the more expensive the DOM updates will be, and that makes it will make it run slower. So that's now when the virtual DOM will have to come in handy to solve that problem. So the virtual DOM actually is just a virtual representation of the real DOM. So every time there's a state, every time there's actually a state of your every time the state of your application changes, basically. So the virtual DOM gets updated instead of the real DOM. Take notice of it. So now one may ask, so if anytime the state of my application changes, is the virtual DOM that gets updated but not the real DOM? Isn't that double work? Like, it's still the same thing. So that is not actually so. The virtual DOM is actually fast, and that is why. So when you add new elements to your UI, a virtual DOM, which is just represented as a tree, is created. A new virtual DOM will be created anytime you make changes or you add new elements to your UI. So each of these elements is a node on the tree. Okay, so if the state of these elements changes, a new virtual DOM tree will be created for that. So this tree is then compared with a previous virtual DOM tree, and this process is called what? DOM. This is diffing. So once you are done with that, or once the virtual DOM does that, then the virtual DOM will intelligently be able to calculate or make an informed decision about the changes to the real DOM. So it will ensure that there are minimal operations on the DOM, hence reducing the performance cost of updating the real DOM. So it actually compares the recent virtual DOM created with the previous one, and it sees which particular one is a component is necessary to be changed. So let's say you have a lot of components. Let's say you have a button component, and you make changes to your button. Maybe you change the text color or the background color of your button. So the UI doesn't need to re-render everything on the page again. So when the virtual DOM isn't there, so the UI will have to render everything, like all the components on your page. I don't know if it's making sense. And that way it makes the application your UI run slower, because the other parts on the UI and it's not even necessary. It's just the button. So that's what React does. This is the virtual DOM does. It will actually check which particular component you are changing, then it will make changes to that. So React is also all about reusable components. So picture your entire applications of smaller pieces of components coming together to form the entire application. So these components basically are the building blocks of your React.js application, or any application that you are going to build using React.js. Components are the building block. So gone are those days before the birth of React.js. Developers who have to write thousands and thousands of lines of code in one single file. That's the logic. Okay, so you have your markup that is separated in an HTML file, then the logic, that's your JavaScript code, in another file, and you have a whole lot of code, like thousands. And that was the problem Facebook was actually facing. They were writing these thousands of code in one single file, which makes their UI start to have run slow. It was having a problem. So now what React does is you separate you actually break down your entire application into pieces, and that's called a component. So you have an entire website where maybe you have your navbar component, you have a button component, even a small, like a button on your website can be a component. Then now the good thing is you don't need to write these components from scratch again in different files. You can just reuse them. So let's say you have a button component in one section of your of a component, and you want to pull in that same button component in another section of your component. You don't need to go and write the code from scratch again. You just have to reuse it, and we'll get to know all what I'm saying. Now React.js is also used by huge organizations. These organizations are not just startups, but well-established organizations, or companies. So Facebook is one. Facebook that is currently maintaining React.js even uses React.js in many of these applications. The Facebook app itself is using React. Instagram uses React. WhatsApp uses React, their web app. So this should tell you that it's worth learning and you can trust it. I'm not saying React.js is here to stay. Programming languages, libraries, and framework, they come and they go away. But at this moment, React.js is trending, and you need to get updated and learn it. Tesla is also one. Airbnb is one. Bluebird, Uber, Pinterest, and all that. And there are also a whole lot of organizations who are using that. But I've just listed these ones. React also has one good thing of learning React.js is React has an amazing and a massive community. So one thing about learning a framework, a new library or a framework, is you have to also check the community back in it. If you realize that there are not a lot of people learning that particular language, because programming, you will definitely run into problems. So if you are learning a language, or maybe a framework or a library that so many people are not using it, when you run into an issue, what do? You Google it and you see just a few people saying something about it, and at the end of the day, you see how stressful it's going to be able to debug it, because there's no a community for it. But the good thing is, so let's visit GitHub right now. So you visit GitHub, you can see that there are 178,000 stars on GitHub. That's on React.js. I've even started also. So this star can just be like a like, let's say a like button, like you liking it. So there are let's just use it that way. So there are 178,000, that's key, developers actually liking React.js, and I think it's worth it. You can learn it right now. If you run into issues, when I started learning React.js, anytime I get an error and I Google it, I immediately get a solution. Like Stack Overflow give me the solution, like, and other website also, people write blog posts, there are a lot of tutorials and just what I'm doing about React.js. Unlike a program, there's a framework like Vue doesn't have a whole lot of, it doesn't have a lot of or massive community backing it as compared to React. Yeah, but I'm sure as time goes by, it will also get a massive community that will back it. And also in React.js, you write less code and you do more. You don't need to write plenty code in order to achieve something. Just little codes, and you get to know what I'm talking about. Instead, when there are certain things that when you write them in vanilla JavaScript, you have to write maybe let's say if it takes you 10 lines to be able to implement some functionality using vanilla JavaScript, in React.js you end up using maybe 5 lines to do that same thing. And I think it's worth it. We all want a more efficient and effective way to write code, but not to waste our time doing long thing. And one good aspect of React.js is, as you are learning React, I know at the back of your mind you want to learn a job. We are not all sitting down here learning, and at the end of the day we don't want to learn a job. We all want to learn a job one day with the skills that you've obtained. So there are plenty or a lot of React.js jobs. If you go to Stack Overflow like this, there are a whole lot. Senior software engineer front end, and they need a React, someone with React knowledge. Go to what's the name, LinkedIn and Indeed, Upwork, a lot. React.js is actually in demand, and it's worth it. Learning this skill, and it's also easy to learn. Okay, now just bring me to my next slide. So what should you know before you learn React.js? Disclaimer, look, if you are new to web development or you've not actually done web development before, please, and you hear of React.js, please start running. Like, don't just go near, because everything, like, you get confused, you just be lost. So what you should learn first before learning React.js is, first you should learn HTML. That's the building blocks of the web. Know how to actually just build a skeleton of your website. Now CSS, learn how to just style, do certain styling on your website. You don't need to go in depth with CSS. Just know the most relevant stuff, like box model, positioning, those stuffs. Then after that, learn JavaScript as a front-end programming language. You should know Java, because React.js is written in the JavaScript programming language. React.js wasn't written in Python or Java or C++, Fortran, and those stuff. It's JavaScript. So you need to be able to know the fundamentals. You should know JavaScript before you learn React.js, and it will make sense. So if you are even very good, if you are well versed in JavaScript programming language, like, you can pick up React in probably a month or a couple of weeks. Yes. So, and now with the JavaScript, you don't need to just learn the basic and that is it. With the JavaScript, you should be comfortable writing ES6 stuff. You should know some of the ES6 features, like arrow function, constant let, import, those stuffs. You should know them. Also, how to integrate an API, and like, learn those things about JavaScript. Like, get the fundamentals down before you move into learn React.js. And if you get the fundamentals down and all that, build a couple of projects using vanilla JavaScript, then you can pick up React very easy. Okay, so now how do we get started with React.js, using React.js in our application? So by far there are two main ways you can use React.js in your application. One is either using the CDNs, okay, and the CDN, let's visit Google and go React.js CDN. So you can use these CDNs, okay, in your React.js application. So let's say you don't want to build your application from scratch using React.js. Maybe you already have an application running and you want to implement some or integrate some features using React. So you can just put in or bring in the CDN into your HTML file, and you can be able to use React. So that's one. And also you can now build, which is very popular, and I would recommend that, building your application from scratch using React.js by a package called Create React App. So all you have to do is make sure you have Node.js installed. So you can go to nodejs.org. So visit nodejs.org, then you download Node.js for any machine that, I don't know, if you're on Mac, you can have a copy here, Windows, Linux, the same thing. So when you are done installing Node.js, open your command line. So just open your command line, then navigate to the directory that you want to install React.js. So let's say I want to install React.js in a folder in my desktop, this called web projects. So this is the folder actually do all my web stuffs. So now this is the command npx. So it said create React app, then space, then the name of the folder. So however you want to name your folder, maybe I choose to say demo React or something, but make sure you don't start with the React, or you can say just my app, any name at all, even your name, however you want to name your folder. Then after that you hit enter, depending on your internet connectivity and how fast your machine is too. So it's downloading like that, but I've already downloaded, so I don't need it. So you can just cancel that. So I've already installed React.js. I've downloaded it. So now when you download and you open the folder, okay, that you just created in a text editor. So in the course of this video, we'll actually be using Visual Studio Code, so you can download that one also. So now, do you see some couple of subfolders in the folder? So you have node models. Just forget about this one. You don't need to touch anything. Don't make a mistake and delete anything here, because that it will affect your application. Then we also have the public folder. So in the public folder we have an index.html file. So this index.html file is just a gateway to React.js. So with this index.html file, so let's say you want to use Bootstrap, maybe font or some icons or those things, so you load them in. Okay, so you can bring that in this index.html file. So now, after you've actually installed the package, all you have to do is just write npm start to open your application. So once you click write the command, you type in the command npm start, it will bring you to, it will open your application on localhost port 3000 by default. That is why to open. So and you see, so this is actually your brand new React.js project, okay, or application. So you can now go in and start tweaking your stuffs. So now let's see a couple of. So now this app.js is actually the root of your application. Okay, so you have so as I said earlier, every piece of your UI is a component in React.js, and these components, they can be maybe 10 components on your application. We have a root component, and that's the app.js, and the other components are the subcomponents, okay, or you can say the branches. So they all come together to form the entire application. So this is actually our root component. So everything you are seeing here, you are seeing on this home page, that's the codes for it. Okay, so now we are importing logo, and that's just this logo you are seeing spinning. So that's, I told you earlier on that you should learn import and export those things. Yes, so that is it. We are importing logo, we are importing our CSS file and all that. Now all these are not necessary, so you can take them away. So now let me explain JSX, what JSX actually is. So the JSX is just an HTML like syntax, okay, that allows you to be able to write an HTML kind of code that will now be what transpiled, okay, by a tool called Babel into the normal vanilla JavaScript for all browsers, for your browser to be able to understand you. So you are not writing normal, some of the codes that you'll be writing, they are not going to be normal JavaScript code. They're going to be like an HTML, like it's HTML, not directly HTML. So for instance, if it was HTML, we have a div class, is called what, app, but you see its class name, which is app. So that's the JSX we are talking about. And we have an image source, which you would have kept maybe in quotes, and you put the name of the file or something of that sort. But you can see that you bring in curly braces in the name of it. So that's JSX. So let's take away this. Let's just see, do some small editing and see. So we can even take away the logo. Then let's just say h1 and say hello React app. You can say hello. Then when you save, it automatically always reload, but sometimes if it doesn't do, you can just click on the refresh button, but it automatically refreshes. So that is what our application you're actually looking at. So you can even bring in, let's say maybe paragraph and say something, maybe M10, something like that. So then you save, then you still see it here. And when you go to the app.css, let's go to the app.css. So we can take away all this. So we had our div, okay, everything's wrapped in a div, and we had a class name to be app. So text align should be center. So we can even increase our font size, and we see to work. So let's say font size is maybe 30 pixels. When you save, you can see that it has increased. So this is what you need to know about React.js, and it's cool at this moment. So I'll be recording the tutorial on the other stuffs about the language, this in the library too. So our next episode is going to be props and state and all that. So please stay tuned. If you like this video, please kindly smash on the like button. It helps in the YouTube algorithm. Like, share the video. If you haven't subscribed, this is your first time, please consider subscribing and leave a comment. What do you think about the video? Just let me know. Thank you, and it's GH Coder here. Bye.